A story that actually happened in Korea. A person who can see spirits. Even though it was late spring, the mountain wind was cold. And it was a day when sweat and wind clung together to the nape of people's necks. My father used to work at the top of a mountain around Gyeonggi, taking commemorative photos for the people who hiked up and charging them for it. I was right next to him, organizing the film and change, half-heartedly helping out. Back then, I had graduated from high school, but didn't have the money for college, so I was just sinking into the gloom of wanting to go, but not being able to. My girlfriend was continuing her studies, and it felt like that was constantly scratching at my pride. What am I doing right now? Thoughts like that were buzzing in my head all day long. At the top of the mountain, there's usually a stone pillar with the mountain's name carved into it, right? Everyone smiles there once and leaves a photo behind once. Before taking photos of the customers, my father would always take a picture of himself first. Just to check if the film was advancing properly, and if the focus was sharp. That day, I did it. But the shutter clicked, and the flash went off just once, but somehow, from the moment I touched the money, my stomach churned. You know that feeling, right? It's not like having a stomachache, and it's not like the nausea you get from motion sickness, but it feels like the bottom of your stomach has dropped out, and something cold is rising up to your throat. I felt so sick that the bill I was clenching felt like it was getting all slimy and wet in my palm. I forced myself to dismiss it, thinking, it's just because I'm not feeling well lately. After all, working on the mountain wasn't exactly a new thing for us. After coming down, we developed the film. Our photo studio was built so that the workspace and our home were connected. In the small, dimly lit darkroom, submerging the film in water, with the smell of chemicals stinging the back of my nose, that familiar space. But my photo was strange. The film hadn't snapped, and light hadn't leaked in, but my face hadn't been captured as a normal face. It was as if my features had been mashed together, as if only the upper half of my body had been twisted towards somewhere else. It was that kind of feeling. The kind that makes the back of your neck cold just looking at it. My father looked at the photo and said it. Almost as if he were tossing it aside. It's a failure. Throw it away. I didn't want to look at it anymore. So I took the photo to the sink and burned it. As the paper burned, it curled up from the edges, and thin smoke mixed with the humidity, spreading into a greasy smell. Even as I watched it turn to ash and those ashes scatter into the depths of the sink. For some reason, I felt even more unsettled. My body wouldn't move. I couldn't move a single finger, and I couldn't turn my head as I wanted to. I could only take shallow breaths. And even those shallow breaths felt suffocating, as if something heavy were sitting on my chest. I forced only my eyes to move and look toward the sink. Water was pooling in the sink. At first, I thought, did I missee that? But the water kept rising, and rising. It looked like it was about to overflow, yet it showed no sign of stopping. The surface of the water was strangely restless, trembling finely as if it were taking a breath. And then, deep inside the faucet, in that dark hole, something suddenly took shape. It was like a face. The wet outline looked as if it were rising slowly not from the drain, but from inside the faucet. It resembled a human face, but it was definitively different in some way. It looked like a woman, and though the skin was pale, it had a strangely raw, vivid quality left to it. Only its eyes remained fixed on me, never looking away. It was less like it was just looking at me, and more like it was conveying, I know you've noticed me. In my heart, I just kept repeating, wake up, but my body remained frozen, and that outline, without making a single sound of splashing water, slowly grew larger. Until the very end, its eyes never left me. Just then, I heard the door open. It was my father. The moment the door opened, as if it were a lie, only the water remained, and that face-like thing was gone. My father looked at the sink and sighed. First thing. Did you leave the water running again? He said, in that kind of tone. I wanted to say that wasn't it, but I couldn't get the words out. Whether what had just happened was reality, a dream, or an illusion my mind had conjured. The line between them was blurring. That day ended that way. But that wasn't the end. When I returned home and lay down, I began to hear the sound of water right by my ear. It wasn't a soft drip, but the rushing sound of water flowing right beside me. There was no logical source for such a sound indoors. Yet the sound crept in as if it were right against my skin. Then, I found myself unable to move. When I opened my eyes, the ceiling had turned into an ocean. It looked as if a deep body of water was held by a transparent membrane, with waves swaying above me. The clarity of it defied all logic. And in that water, I saw myself floating. I was looking at my own body from a distance. Next to it, something else emerged. And that presence reached out, pulling me toward the surface. It felt as if a heavy, unseen force was drawing me into the depth of the water. I felt a profound sense of pressure. I tried to call out, but no sound came. And that thing was laughing. That was what terrified me the most. It wasn't a face of malice, but an expression. As if it were truly pleased to watch me succumb. At that moment, my father yelled. Something like, "Do you think humans are only on the floor?" The moment I heard that voice, everything vanished again as if someone had pulled the plug. The ceiling, the water, that hand, everything. For the first time then, I cried and told my father. I see a strange woman's face. One that comes out of the water. When I said that, my father's expression finally hardened. He must have realized right then that this wasn't a joke. My father said, "Don't sleep here. Go sleep somewhere else." Then, a few days later, my father took me to a Mudang shaman. The moment the Mudang saw me, she stated it strangely clearly. "It's not that it's possessing you, it's sealed inside you." She said that half of it was trapped inside my body, and the other half was wandering outside, searching for it. And she warned me that if that half catches me, then it's truly the end. But she also said that she couldn't extract it herself. She put it in a way that implied if she tried to pull it out, I would literally be pulled out along with it. Even after hearing that, I couldn't feel it was real at all. But the nightmares did not cease. In those visions, that woman would guide me into the water, as if my presence were merely drifting in the currents. I felt helpless to resist. And from one day on, in my dreams, I felt as though my sense of self was gradually fading. My awareness would dim, and my very presence would seem to blur at the edges. From the moment the realization that I was slipping away became a vivid sensory experience, the act of sleeping itself became a source of terror. My father went to great lengths, searching for any possible solution. Eventually, he consulted a practitioner at a quiet sanctuary, and the moment they saw me, they shared a message identical to what had been said before. That there was an external energy trapped within me, caught in a state of stasis. The practitioner traced the origin back to that single photograph. They explained that certain landscapes possess an echo of their own, and some remnants linger there, looking for a way forward. When I took that photo, my state of mind was so overwhelming that it created a resonance with that lingering energy. The flash captured it, and it became tethered to me. The practitioner placed a simple string of wooden beads in my hand. It looked entirely ordinary at a glance. "Endure until the remaining half is resolved," they said. "That is where your path will be decided." Their tone was so detached, it made the gravity of the situation feel even more profound. The problem was, that half actually came. One day, my girlfriend dropped by the photo studio for a moment. My father was outside, and I wasn't at home. She had just gone to look for some film to pack a few things. But the moment she opened the door to go inside, she heard a click from the back. There was definitely no one there, yet it was the sound of taking a photo. When she peeked inside, saying, "Oppa, what is this?" She said that every time the shutter clicked, she felt some kind of shape, slowly getting closer. Finally, she felt a sensation like something had clapped onto her waist, and that was when she screamed and ran out. The moment I heard that story, my head froze. "Ah, it's here, that half." From that day on, she started saying, "I'll stay by your side." I couldn't sleep at home because I was scared, so I stayed at her place, where she lived with her roommate. She would study at her desk until dawn, and I would lie on the bed. Just the fact that someone was next to me, that alone was enough to let me finally sleep. But in the middle of sleeping, I felt a sensation of the side of the bed sinking in, as if someone had sat down on the edge. I just thought, she must be lying down next to me, and actually felt relieved. Thinking back now, that was the most chilling part of it all. Right next to me, I heard a strange sound. I couldn't tell if it was crying or laughing, a sound like breath scratching the back of a throat. Startled, I jumped up and reached out. In the darkness, I grabbed her shoulders and shook her, asking, "Are you okay?" The moment I did that, I saw something near the desk. Something shaped like a person was waving its hands strangely. It was shaking its head left and right, extremely slowly, as if to say, "No." I was so terrified that my hands were shaking violently, but I still flipped the switch. The moment the light came on, it was gone, and there was only her. She was crying and waving her hands. "No, no," she said. What I heard later was even more harrowing. She had gone to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and the water wouldn't flow properly. And she said she heard a strangely damp, watery sound. So when she returned to the room, it was on my bed. And when she tried to pull the blanket over me, it shook its head, making a motion as if to say, "Don't do it." She was terrified and tried to wake me up. And in the darkness, I had seen it. The moment I turned on the light, it vanished. That was when I looked at the prayer beads. The beads had turned red. Not all of them, but the color was definitely different. In particular, one bead felt so clogged, as if something were stuck in my throat like phlegm, making it hard to breathe. We went to the monk one more time. The monk said, "It's full inside now." He told me that if it had stayed attached until the prayer beads had completely burned through, I would have truly died. Then, he performed some kind of ritual for me. Honestly, my memory of that process is still a blur even now. I felt a retching nausea, and a feeling like, something like a shell had left me. That's the only part that remains. After it was over, there was one thing the monk said with a laugh. "When you take photos, try not to think about wanting to die as much as possible. It's not a funeral portrait. Why would you take a picture with that kind of mindset?" The moment I heard those words, the day on the mountaintop, the moment the flash went off, flashed back before my eyes. It wasn't just a single photo. That day, I had captured the state of my own heart exactly as it was, and burned it into that photograph.